Welcome, brothers and sisters, to Mormon Movie Reviews, where LDS movie lovers belong. My name is D. Bays, and today is October 23rd, 2022. This is episode 42, and we will be watching Decision, 1957. Running time is 15 minutes. This review works best if you've seen this film before, though that is not required. And a spoiler alert, your synopsis: an LDS airman during World War II in Australia resists pressures to drink alcohol and is respected by his superior officer. Film background: a much shortened cut of this film was released in a segment entitled True to the Faith, which was intended for Family Home Evening Supplement videocassettes in 1987. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm at mormonmoviereviews@gmail.com. This is brought to us by the Personal Standards Committee, as you can see here. That is a very rare committee. I can find very little to inform you as to what this committee is. If you know, then drop it into the show notes. I'd be very interested. This is shot in the style of like a World War II war update film, but it's 1957, so it's set 13 years earlier. Now, the church probably purchased the music to this film from a Hollywood musical score catalog. That's why there's no composer in the film credits. And one last note here, this was brought to us in partnership with, in cooperation with, the Utah National Guard and the United States Air Force. Now, I was a member of the Utah National Guard for 23 years, so I guess I know a thing or two about the organization. It's extremely funny to see or even contemplate the church partnering with the Utah National Guard for a film like this. And one reason is because just a few years later, the Utah Army National Guard was under investigation. British swimsuit calendar shot on Utah National Guard base without proper authorization sparks investigation. In the 1950s, the Utah National Guard was partnering with the Mormon Church. In 2015, they're partnering with Hot Shots. So I guess it's funny to see how things have really changed. Now, this was an animated opening here that we saw here. Wetzel O. Whitaker was the film producer for this short, as he did, so many of these early church films. And of course, he came from the Disney studio, so he loved these animated type of openings. And there's your setting, World War II.
It seemed good to be flying back to civilization.
It is extremely hard to talk in the back of one of these planes. Typically, if you need to talk, you would be literally shouting or screaming at the top of your lungs in order to be heard. These rattle traps, they are very loud. They don't have noise dampening. It's not like a commercial aircraft where it's nice and cozy and comfortable and people can chat. According to a lot of Air Force regulations, everyone would be required to wear earplugs in the back of this little plane. And also, typically, you'd be wearing camouflage uniforms in the back of a troop transport, not dress uniforms like you've seen here.
Especially after spending so many months at a dry, dusty base in the Northern Territory of Australia. I was sort of glad the commanding officer selected me to attend a ballistics school conducted by the Australian Air Force. Believe me, this change was as good as any rest.
He's not getting a rest. In other words, he's not being able to have a pass. Usually, typically, when you're in a war zone like this, you typically wouldn't be able to go on leave, although there would be some exceptions to that. Typically, you'd be able to go on a pass, or as he refers to it, a rest. Normally, you'd be talking about a pass here. Here we see Burt Pack, who's playing Don Carlson. Now, I don't believe that he has played in any other church films, and he doesn't have any IMDb credits that I can find.
My name is Don Carlson, Sergeant, United States Air Force.
So it seems like he is going to a school here, which is put on by the Australians. Now, it would be very rare for an airman to attend a non-Department of Defense school like this that's put on by a different country. It is possible, but that's exceptionally rare. Typically, U.S. military wants to send people to U.S. military schools so that you can ensure that, people are receiving the proper training. He said Sergeant U.S. Air Force. Typically, you would say what rank of a sergeant you are. Like, is he a technical sergeant? Is he a staff sergeant? Usually you would say that. Now, I believe that this is a Douglas C-47, first manufactured in 1936. It could carry 28 passengers. There were 3 different models of this particular type of plane. There's a couple of replicas of this up at Hill Air Force Base.
I've forgotten many things I learned at this school. Muzzle velocity, pattern, torque, remaining velocity, and so forth. But there's one experience I shall never forget.
There's one experience that he will never forget. Did he by chance run into Paul H. Dunn? Now, Paul H. Dunn, of course, was a supposed war hero in World War II. Turns out that he exaggerated a few of his stories.
I see you. See you in the truck. Hi there, Bob. What are you doing down here?
Man alive, it's good to see you. I'm going to ballistic school. What are you doing here?
Here on the left, we see Wallace Broberg, who's playing the part of Bob Jackson.
See you? I'm going to ballistic school. What are you doing here?
Oh, they had to ship out a battalion of Marines, so they sent me to take their place.
This is a tough base. Plenty of spit and polish.
Oh, don't tell me that.
Man, look.
Real trees.
Ah, come on, get in there.
We were in the same group, but different squadrons. And this was the first time we had seen each other since shipping out.
I suspect that this was shot at Camp Williams, Utah, which is on the border of Salt Lake City and Utah counties.
As far as I knew, I was the only Mormon there.
Hi, men. Ready? Up, down. Let's see. I have all the Yanks with you. Yep, Yanks, you stand over here. Yanks. Go,
So I think this area over here is now what is called Tarbert Field on Camp Williams, a place that I've been to many times.
Let's see. Anthony, Henniger, Torkelson, Carlson. Here. Let's see. I'll show you where your quarters are. Mess is at 6 on the dot.
Okay, so mess is at 6 on the dot, meaning food or chow is at 6 on the dot. But typically you would hear this being done in military time. So it would be 0600 if it was in the morning, or 1800 military time.
The mess hall is over here.
My American friends were used to the fact that I didn't drink or smoke.
Yeah, he doesn't drink or smoke, and his friends were also used to the fact that he's really looking forward to practicing celestial polygamy in the afterlife. I mean, everyone's used to him by now, right?
I sort of wondered what the Aussies would think. After a few weeks of associating with them, I was quite sure they all knew that I was LDS. This fact usually got around fast.
We're in the height of the Pacific Theater time here, 1944. All hands on deck here. And he's taking a ballistics course overseas, taking time out from the war effort, which was significant during this time, to go to a ballistics course. That would be very rare. Typically, you would receive all the instruction that you need stateside, ship out, and you'd be fighting for the rest of the time.
The unforgettable experience of which I spoke really started when the Aussies had their annual officers' party. They extended an invitation to their American visitors.
Now, typically here, if you had an officers' party, they wouldn't be inviting sergeants. Typically, with an officers' party, you'd have an officers' party, then you'd have an enlisted party and non-commissioned officers. They wouldn't mix the two. It's possible, but it's rare.
Beautiful silver, linen table coverings, even candles yet. The works.
Yeah, the works, but fake windows, because this is a BYU Motion Picture Studio set, so fake windows. Now, here's our first look here coming up at the flight commander. We never get to hear his name. He's played by Harry Hudson, and again, I can't find anything else about Mr. Hudson here, who we see right here.
At ease, men.
Whoops.
Trust me to pull the biggest faux pas of the year.
Oh, no. I like that they've got the World War II posters here on the back. Loose lips sink ships. Don't talk or we could all be dead. That seems very accurate to me. And of course, ceremony is extremely important in military traditions. Now, if you watch these guys who are bringing the soup or whatever this is, they bump into the flags there. That would be considered a sign of disrespect. And besides, typically you'd honor the colors at the beginning of a gathering by bringing them out in a small ceremony. They wouldn't be there ahead of time. So there's just a couple things here that are not quite accurate from my perspective.
After a gorgeous banquet of everything from soup to nuts, I realized that something was about to happen of great significance. When the waiters came in with those 2 fancy-shaped bottles of wine, my heart found its way right down to my toes.
Naturally, it would, because of Latter-day Saints' emphasis on the so-called word of wisdom. Now, too bad this isn't 40 years earlier. It's supposed to be 1944. If this had been even 25 years earlier than that, the word of wisdom wasn't even a requirement. It wasn't a part of the Temple Recommend interview or really a requirement for the faith until 1920, 1921. Of course, he's on an Australian base, so not only would alcohol be a problem for him, but tea would also be a problem for him, since a lot of Aussies drink tea.
Gentlemen, I give you the toast of His Majesty the King.
Now, this was a little confusing to me. He was toasting the king, and I was thinking 1957. Well, that was supposed to be Queen Elizabeth. Then I thought, oh no, it's not Queen Elizabeth. In 1944, the British monarch was George VI. So yes, they're toasting the king because Queen Elizabeth hadn't taken over yet.
And at the same time, I welcome and ask our American friends to join us in this traditional ceremony and this mess. You might be reminded of the necessary cooperation between the Allied forces in defeating the common enemy.
Yes, the common enemy that they're talking about here is the Japanese, right? Of course. You have the Australian flag, which is on here on the left, and I really can't figure out what this flag is. Maybe it's a regimental flag. That's probably what it is, signifying either the base or one of the squadrons or probably a group. But it should be lower. Nothing should be higher than the Australian flag, in my opinion. This other flag over here, whatever it should be lower.
I wish our American friends every success in the School of Ballistics, and I welcome them formally to this officers' mess. Gentlemen, in toasting the king, there is a traditional ceremony that we have here. It involves, while charging your glasses, the fact that you will circle the glass with the bottle before filling it, and after you've filled it, make sure that the bottle does not again touch the table.
Now, the toasting here is definitely a part of military traditions. In the U.S. military, there's the tradition of the grog, which has a lot of tradition that goes around with it. And there's basically two types of military dinners like this. There's what is called a dining in and a dining out. Dining out is for family members to be included. A dining in is just you and the good old boys. Okay, so this is a dining in. And we're hearing the turbulent music here, which is used to build suspense.
What a spot to be in.
He said, what a spot to be in.
What could I do? If I refused, they might consider it a personal affront to the king and queen.
Yeah, I mean, pretend you're at the wedding of Cana, right? I mean, just...
What was I so nervous about? After all, one little drink wasn't going to hurt me. And if I took it, I wouldn't insult the king and queen or hosts or anyone.
Not Even Once Club, which was published in 2013. Hey, you don't even do something bad even one time.
Look at old Bob. Nothing bothering him. What should I do? I had to make a decision.
I mean, fake it until you make it. Just make it go around, make it look. Don't draw a lot of attention to yourself. Just fake it till you make it. That's my advice.
That bottle looked as big as a barrel. I had the awful feeling that every man in the place was watching me, wondering what I would do. I had the greatest respect for the royal family, but I just couldn't drink this toast. A guy has to live with himself.
Yeah, I mean, a guy has to live with himself. Take a page out of Jesus, Joseph Smith, Brigham Young. They all drink wine. I don't know.
The king.
So, I mean, they're playing God Save the King, but typically this would be played at the beginning of the event when posting the colors, not in the middle.
The king.
To the king.
Now just
Bob
pretend you're
said
drinking,
this was
man.
the toughest base in Australia. And maybe by sticking to my principles, I'd make it tougher.
Especially if you're not good at faking it.
Gentlemen, to the regiment.
Just think about Joseph Smith in the Book of Abraham, man. Just make it look believable. No? Okay.
To the regimental officers. To the officers.
I knew if they kept going, they'd soon be toasting the chimney sweep at Buckingham Palace. I kept thinking, what's going to happen to me?
You know, maybe you should have thought about this in advance. Just saying. Now, singing has a big tradition in the military. Now, I can really relate to the sergeant's experience here because I did have a commanding officer, much like the flight commander, who ordered something similar. He ordered it basically. He said, "We're all going to go out to dinner and we're going to split the tab 7, 8, 10, 12." It turned out to be like 40 different ways, which meant that I would have been responsible for paying someone else's alcohol bill. That was not something that I was comfortable with doing, so I didn't attend that dinner at all.
I just had to get away, and this looked like the best time to do it.
Yeah, so I mean, when you're a Mormon, you're in the military, and you know there's going to be drinking. You got to have a plan. You got to think things out. That was a little awkward for me to miss that dinner, but I did it at the time, and I thought it was the best decision. I would do it again.
Let's face it, I'd made a terrible impression tonight. But anyway, my conscience was clear. I was ready to sweat out the consequences.
Sergeant Carlson? Sergeant Carlson. Here. The commanding officer wants to see you in his office right away.
Oh no,
Okay. Well,
not good.
This is it. Shall I pack my bag now or later?
I'll pack it for you. Who do you want me to notify as next of kin?
Joker.
Yeah. So he's singing taps like he's dead. Now, typically, an American sergeant would report to an American commanding officer, though it would be possible in some circumstances to report to an Australian.
Sit down. The flight commander will see you in a moment.
Adding the suspense, the pressure cooker. I've been right there, Sergeant Carlson. It's nerve-wracking to be called into the commander's office. Oh! Oh! Not fun, not fun. Now, you'll notice when he gets called in here that he has this headgear in his right hand. You really want to put it in the left hand because you're going to be saluting. So it's a little odd that he walks in with the headgear in the right hand.
You may go in now, Sergeant.
See? Right hand. That's not how you do it, dude. You want to put that in your pocket or your left hand.
Sergeant Carlson reporting, sir.
Okay, now it is considered very rude here for the flight commander and even disrespectful not to return a salute in a timely fashion. Now, Carlson here, he should have held that salute indefinitely, should not have dropped it. But the flight commander is being extremely rude. He should have been holding that salute the whole time. It's a little odd to salute twice.
Howdy, Sergeant. So you're a Mormon, Sergeant?
That's right, sir.
Yep, that's right, sir. I hope to get my planet one day. Not a big one, maybe just a mid-sized one.
Your paper said you were. You know, last night, when you passed by the toast to His Majesty the King, I realized your principles caused you to do it, and I admired you for it.
Yes, he admired him for it, and that's why I instructed the prosecution to go easy on your court-martial.
I've heard a lot of good things about the Mormons.
Yes, I've heard so many good things about the Mormons, that they think American Indians are actually Jews and that Jesus was a polygamist and that God cursed Negroes with black skin. Heard a lot of good things.
And I'm quite interested. I'd like you to tell me something about your religion and your people.
What? Okay, all right. No problem, sir. Okay, it all started with an early 19th century New England convicted glass looker and treasure hunter who eventually became a polyamorous philanderer who, and you will find this really interesting considering why I'm in here, he was actually killed the day after he was drinking wine with his friends in jail. And here's a pamphlet which has the address of where you will need to send 10% of the money that you will make for the rest of your life Here's a pamphlet with the address. Here you go, sir.
I'd like very much to, sir. It's a great story. Where would you like me to begin? Strange how large a decision can loom at the time, and how good you feel when you know you've made the right choice.
True.
It would have been so simple to take the easy way. But think of the damage to me and to the church if I had compromised my principles.
How about planning in advance?
Thanks, Lord, for giving me strength when I needed it.
I mean, you're most welcome. Oh, sorry, that wasn't for me. I mean, okay, so that's the end of the film here. Why did the flight commander disrespect Sergeant Carlson by not saluting him and ignoring him if he just wanted to learn more? I mean, you can salute him and say, oh, hold on for a second, Sergeant, I got to finish this paperwork. Just ignoring someone saluting you, that is rude and disrespectful, and it doesn't line up with the rest of the interview. Now, like I said, if Sergeant Carlson had just lived 25 years earlier, he wouldn't have had to worry about any of this, because wine only became a temple recommend question like in 1920. And before that, the word of wisdom specifically says, not by way of commandment, basically a suggestion. Jesus, he drank wine. Joseph Smith, he drank wine. Brigham Young, he drank wine. So drinking wine, you'd be in, I guess, very good company, because those are apparently the heads of the dispensation. Wine, in particular, red wine, a lot of studies have shown that it may extend the lifespan and reduce risk and or help prevent the onset of chronic diseases, including depression and metabolic syndrome, when enjoyed in moderation. That being said, if you go back and look at my review of Bitter Wind, you'll note that I have a lot of experience in my own personal life and in my own family about people who have taken alcohol consumption way too far. When I had a commanding officer in the military who said, hey, we're all going out to dinner and we're going to split the bill, which would have required me to have paid for other person's alcohol, since it would have been split like 40 ways evenly. I wasn't comfortable with that, so I did not attend that. And it doesn't look like Sergeant Carlson was ordered to this. It looks like it was an invitation. So just a little bit of planning in advance could have helped this entire situation. This is a very typical church standards reinforcing video. I think the church did a pretty good job of getting most of the military details correct. It's basically a cookie cutter approach, and everyone, I thought, portrayed their roles really well. Thank you so much for joining me to review this film. Please like, subscribe, and join me for the next review, in which we will be reviewing The Work and the Glory. So long.